Alright, so today I was going through all my ball pythons. I go through every single tub in my whole collection every single day, and believe it or not, one of my females was sitting on a big clutch of eggs. We're here in the middle of the breeding season. It's pretty awesome, and this is a really special clutch of eggs. As a matter of fact, this snake around my neck, this is Bobby, my bamboo ball python. I actually bred Bobby to a pastel calico a couple years ago, and I hatched out this beauty. Take a look at this one. This is actually the dad of the clutch that I'm actually going to pull today. This is actually a really beautiful bamboo calico. Look what the calico does to the bamboo. Brings the white all the way up the sides. Makes for a really amazing snake. As a matter of fact, I actually produced a pastel bamboo calico. It was really super awesome. It was just like this, except it had, you know, all the whites were actually like a bright yellow. It was really pretty amazing. And I actually brought it to a reptile show and I was kind of showing it off, and someone actually offered me some pretty good money for it, and I actually sold it. So now I'm trying to reproduce my pastel bamboo calico. It doesn't really matter if it's a male or a female. I'll probably hold one back, and I'm not sure if I'm actually going to replace this guy, or what I'd really like to do is get a few more female bamboos and then shoot for the super bamboo, which is an all-white snake with blue eyes. It'll be pretty amazing to actually get an all-white bamboo. I do have one, as a matter of fact, that's a bamboo lesser that I was trying to breed this year, and I think it might have been a little too young to actually breed, and I think that's why I'm kind of having a bad year, is because I kind of bred some snakes that where the males were a little bit too young, 2 of them, and I kind of spread them a little thin. Took quite a big risk actually breeding some young males in my collection, but this is really awesome, and you can definitely tell compared to Bobby the difference, you know, what the calico does to the sides really makes a huge difference. So what I want to do is I want to show you this big clutch of eggs, and then what I want to do is I want to pull that female off of the eggs and make sure she doesn't have any eggs in her. I think she's done. As a matter of fact, I was looking this morning and it looked like early this morning she was, you know, she's on a big clutch of eggs, and I gave her half the day. She should be, usually it's only a few hours, but by the time they start laying eggs till the time they actually finish laying eggs. So I'm hoping she should be done laying at this point, and we'll put those eggs up in the incubator. Alright, so I actually have my female up here, almost on the very top of this rack up here. This is an ARS 7030 rack. This is perfect size for adult ball pythons, and take a look at this female. She is on a big clutch egg. She's a pretty big female too. And I actually used to put the weights on the stickers here, but I haven't updated my weights. As a matter of fact, I think I cut most of the weights off of these little identification stickers for the longest time, but she is really on a big clutch of eggs right there. You can see a little bit of an egg right there on top. So what I'm gonna do is I want to pull this tub out, put it on the table, and let's see if we can get this female off of those eggs. So before I actually take that female out, I wanted to show you where I'm going to put her temporarily. I actually have 2 big boa tubs down here. I have a corn snake in the top one that I actually sold. I've just been waiting for the whole, you know, the shipping delays to get better before I can ship some of these snakes. And then in my bottom tub, essentially I keep all of my, this is my brand new coconut husk substrate that I put down here on the bottom. And, you know, checking my tubs every single day is fantastic, because, you know, if I find any dirty tubs that maybe are molding a little bit, or they, you know, have a little too much water, or, you know, they start getting a little stinky, then I just change it out with this brand new coconut husk, and this stuff smells wonderful. I don't know if you've ever used this, like a Pro Coco or a Repta-Chip or something like that. This stuff smells like a tropical jungle. I just love the smell of the coconut husk. You should at least try one block. It's pretty amazing stuff. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the female and just put her in here temporarily while I can get her off those eggs, and then we'll take a look at those eggs, put them up in the incubator, and then I'll move the female back. Alright, so I have to tell you, there's 2 things I enjoy the most from breeding ball pythons. That is getting eggs, and then watching my eggs actually hatch at the very end. And this girl, she is like got a death grip on these eggs. She is a really big female. I'm really glad she actually laid this year. I'm glad that bamboo calico wasn't too young, because this is the first time I actually bred them. And I probably bred my other ones a little bit too early versus some of my, like the bamboo calico, that's probably probably the smallest age. You know, I'd probably wait for 2 years on your male so you don't actually, you know, have a bust of a year like I'm actually having this year. You know, this is my second clutch. It looks like I may only have a couple more clutches, but look at how defensive she is. And if you get too close to the snappy end, this girl would actually probably take a bite at you. So essentially what you have to do is you kind of have to go around the back side of the snake and just kind of agitate her just a little so she finally lets go of the egg. She's got a really big clutch. Wow, look at all those eggs under there. That is, holy cow, I think this might be the biggest clutch I've ever had from a smaller snake like this that, you know, is not one of my really big ones. So the first thing I want to do is, now that I got her off, is I kind of want to feel her body to make sure she doesn't have any more eggs inside of her belly. And that's one of the problems I'm having with my other snakes. As a matter of fact, she is still egg bound with 2 snakes. And I'm hoping she'll actually pull out of it. So essentially what you want to do is you kind of want to feel down the belly, down the cavity of the belly for any bumps. This one is completely empty. She's a really good looking pastel. And look at how much the pastels really fade out as they mature. When they're young, they are super bright and they kind of turn a little bit brown, kind of a brownish yellow when they get older. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this one down here in my tub of coconut husk. And then I want to show you how I separate these and candle them. It looks like we have a really good clutch of eggs. Take a look at those beauties right there. Wow, that is awesome. And some people, what they'll actually do is they'll take the whole clutch and put it right in the incubator just like that. And what I prefer to do is I actually prefer to separate each individual egg. That way if you actually get one that goes bad, you can actually remove it. And as a matter of fact, on my very last clutch, what I did is I had one that came out after it was egg bound a little bit, and I sprayed it with peroxide, hydrogen peroxide. And let me tell you, you don't want to spray it with hydrogen peroxide. That egg turned black and got hard as a rock after just a few days. I'm thinking hydrogen peroxide on eggs is a really bad idea. So essentially what I do is I just peel these really slow and really gentle and kind of rock them back and forth. And the problem with separating eggs is that if you let them sit for too long, like if you let these eggs sit in here for 2 days, there's no way you're gonna actually separate them, because the longer you let them sit in there, the stronger they are bound together. It's kind of like a glue or something on the egg. And these, you can tell, these are probably been laid early this morning or maybe even late last night. So we actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 eggs. 11 eggs. That is amazing. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have to get two incubation boxes. As a matter of fact, I just pulled one out. I'm going to have to clean another one. These are really good looking eggs. No slugs at all. And when you're actually separating these eggs, some people just leave them together. And I actually prefer to separate them. And you have to go really slow. As a matter of fact, I actually had one that I pulled apart a little too fast one year, and it got a leak, and I used a Band-Aid on it. Believe it or not, a Band-Aid actually works to repair a leaky egg if you actually rip a hole in it. But what I do is I just kind of tease it really gently and just kind of pop them apart. And I kind of go a little bit one way and a little bit another way, so you're not really tearing them all from one side. I know this makes a lot of people nervous, actually taking the eggs apart like this. This one actually just fell out. And see this egg right here, this is what they call a boob egg. And the boob eggs do hatch. You definitely don't want to throw those away. You know, some people may be fooled into thinking it's kind of like an infertile slug or something, and they actually will hatch. As a matter of fact, most of the ones I've seen from other breeders, like on YouTube videos, they've pretty much all hatched. And these are really clean, really bright looking eggs, looking really good. No problems at all. This one is a little bit stubborn right here. This is, you know, you kind of have to watch these, how you actually take them apart like this. You have to be really careful that you don't rip them. As a matter of fact, if you actually rip one, essentially what happens is this clear, goopy liquid will actually leak out of the egg, and it's not good to actually lose any of that liquid out of the egg. You definitely want to keep as much as you can in the egg. And the problem is if you don't separate them, I've seen some people put the whole thing in there. The thing is every now and then you'll get an egg that goes bad for whatever reason, and it gets really super stinky and funky, and you definitely don't want one like that, like underneath your whole batch of good eggs. You know, let me tell you, that would freak me out more than actually pulling these eggs apart like this. So then what I do from here, after I get them all separated, is I actually candle them with a light to get so you can actually see which side is the embryo side. You always want the embryo side up. So what I want to do is I'm going to turn out some lights. I want to get my marker. I just use a Sharpie, and then I use this old flashlight that I have in my pocket. The batteries are getting kind of weak, but I think it'll be all right. And then let's see, we'll turn out some of these overhead lights and studio lights. And what I want to do is I want to candle these so you can actually see where the embryo is on this egg. And you can see this little kind of a jiggly spot right there. That is the spot that you actually want to mark with your marker. And I just put a little X right on the top. And then when you put them in the egg boxes, you want all the embryos facing up. And you can see on this one, it's actually, if you can actually see, it's a little bit jiggly, like right there. And sometimes it's kind of in a circle and sometimes it's not. You can see these, it seems like the older your eggs are, the harder it is to see the embryos. As a matter of fact, if you let these sit for about a week in the incubator and pulled them out and tried to look for the embryo, you really couldn't see where the embryo is. And this one's kind of on the side right there. You can actually see it kind of right there. And then let's take a look at this boob egg here. This boob egg, this looks actually pretty clear. There's a little bit right in there. You can almost see just a little bit. Almost looks like an infertile egg. Just a little bit of stuff going on right in there, which is kind of interesting. It's so clear. I think that might be the first boob egg I've ever got. I've gotten a few slugs, and most of my eggs are really super good. So this one's right here. I usually get a good egg or a bad egg. You usually don't get kind of those weird ones like that. So here's another one. You definitely see on that one. The embryo's right here. And some people just, you know, it's kind of interesting. I was actually looking at some of the embryos in the whole setup where the snake actually lays the whole clump. And believe it or not, the embryos aren't up on all the eggs if you put them in the whole clump of eggs. If you put them in the incubator, I actually kind of candled them in the clump before, and they're just kind of all over random, all over the place. And I've actually seen some studies online where you can actually you know, look up some of this information on hatching snake eggs, and they say you have, you know, maybe 5 or 10% better odds of hatching your eggs if the embryo's on top. So if it's actually on the bottom, it's not a total bust. Whoa, this one is super dark. Look at that. These eggs are, you can definitely tell these eggs have been in there for a little while, where they're a little bit older than I usually find them in there. It's pretty amazing. And here is the last one right here. This is the embryo right on top. Alright, so I'm going to show you how I set up these incubation boxes, and essentially what I use is I use these little plastic shoe boxes that I think I'm not exactly sure how big they are. I can get them on Amazon. As a matter of fact, I can put the link below and see if I can find these for you. They're really just simple shoe boxes. Doesn't really matter how big they are. I pretty much use these because of the space in my incubator, so I can fit multiple on a shelf without using up too much room. And you know, it would actually be better if I had bigger boxes, because this one only holds about half of one of these big clutches. So essentially I actually have to use 2 of them. And then I put it on my balance, my scale, and then I zero it. And then I actually use vermiculite for the kind of the substrate on the bottom. And this is what I use. I use a really fine vermiculite. Some people use like the coarser vermiculite. Some people use perlite. You can use hatchite. I've seen kind of these volcanic kind of a different kind of a hatching material. You can use anything really that's inert, that's not going to really go bad. And essentially what I do is I weigh it out, 150 grams. Let's see if I'm on grams. Yeah, so 150 grams of vermiculite and then 150 grams of water, and it works fantastic. I actually tried 200 grams once, and 200 grams, you get to the point where there's not enough room in the egg box if you go up to 200 grams, and sometimes the eggs will actually hit the top of the plastic up on top. So I'm at like 150.1, perfect. And then what I do is I just zero it out, and then I add 150 grams of water. And what I do is I preheat my water, just coming right out of the tap, to about 90 degrees. That's what my incubator is, 90 degrees. And then I get close by just pouring some in, and then the last few drops I add with the syringe, so I'm a little bit more accurate. And you really don't want to overshoot this. As a matter of fact, if you do overshoot it, you can add a little more vermiculite, so you're at 50-50. And I don't add any more water or anything for the full 2 months of incubation. Looks like I'm about 138, 140. Oh, I went over. So there I went up to, yeah, normally what I use a little syringe to get to the last little bit. This time I overshot it. I'm at 162. So what I can do is I can just add another 12 grams of vermiculite to kind of balance it out. I like to keep a 50-50 mix of vermiculite and water, and I know I can go pretty close to 200 grams because I've done 200 grams a couple times before, and I've kind of went back to 150. So I'm at like 6 grams, 7 grams. I can go up to like 12 grams, close enough. Within a gram or two. And then what I do is I just kind of mix it up with my hands. And you really want a really consistent mix to mix the water in to kind of, it's almost like it almost seems like there's not that much water in there if you actually mix it up like this, and it's the perfect consistency. I'd say it's kind of hard to actually get to this consistency unless you actually weigh it out. And you can see sometimes it kind of clumps on the bottom. And a good way to kind of do this is I've seen a lot of people kind of, grab a handful and clump it up, and you can see it clumps, but it doesn't drain anything. And I just weigh it, and I don't have to worry about it at all. And then what I do from here, I've actually seen people use it just like this and put the eggs right on this vermiculite water mixture, and you can do that. But the problem I found is once the hatchlings come out, essentially what happens is they get all covered in vermiculite, and you have all these new hatchlings crawling around that are completely covered with this vermiculite. It looks pretty bad. So what I use these little trays that go right on top like this. As a matter of fact, I was looking at someone's YouTube channel, and they actually had trays with little indentations cut out, like pre-cut for ball python eggs. I thought that was kind of cute. Of course, with a tray like this, I could put a lot more eggs on a tray like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set up my other box, and then we'll continue. So I wasn't actually going to show you this next box, but one thing I wanted to mention, when you're actually filling up these boxes, before you actually put in your vermiculite and your water and everything, you definitely want to make sure that everything is super clean, because one of the biggest problems with a long-term incubation of 2 months at 90 degrees is bacteria and fungus. It's really bad. So essentially what I do is I actually wash these really good, and then I soak them in a soapy bleach water for about 5 minutes to make sure everything is completely kind of clean. Make sure it's sterilized as much as you can. I don't like have a clean room or anything like this. I just try to keep it as clean as possible, so that way it just kind of eliminates the problems with the mold and the fungus for the 2 months of incubation. Alright, so in this box I got close with the water, and essentially what I do is just the last little bit, I use my syringe and I just put a little bit in at a time so I can get really close to 150 grams without shooting over. Makes it really easy if you have a little syringe like this to put in the last little bit of water. All right, so at this point, essentially what I do is I just put the eggs right in these little egg boxes. One of the things you kind of have to make sure is that the bottom of the grate, this grating, is level. So you kind of have to level out your vermiculite before you put the grate in. As a matter of fact, I got these over on Amazon, these little egg crates, and they fit in here perfect except for the corners. I actually had to take a little tin snip and actually cut out the corners, and they fit in there fantastic, just perfect. And what I want to do is just put the eggs right in there. I just have my tub open a little bit, and I want to put the embryos facing up on these egg boxes, just like this. And this is a really big clutch. I'm really excited. So I think it was, what, 11 eggs? 11 eggs. So we should get 5 or 6 bamboos, which is pretty awesome for that size of a clutch. And I don't really like to put too many in one egg box because I like to kind of give them a little bit of room. You really want to keep them away from the sides because a lot of the condensation will run down the sides of the egg box. You definitely don't want all that condensation running on the eggs. So this is it. Don't think I could have fit all these in one box, maybe. And then what I like to do is I like to kind of wedge them right in kind of like a wedge pattern, so you could fit them in without them rolling around. Some people actually use like toothpicks or popsicle sticks or something like that, and you can actually just kind of wedge them in without using any kind of support if you kind of get them in right at the right angle, just like that. And this one's kind of wedged too, and I like to keep them right in the middle. And another thing with keeping them kind of, not overpopulated where you have a lot of eggs in there, is you can actually see in from all sides. And a quick glance in the incubator, you can actually kind of move them just a little bit and see all the eggs at a pretty easy glance, unless you try not to, get too many in one box. And if I actually had all these kind of really stuck together, what I'd have to do is I'd have to upgrade to a bigger box that would hold the whole clutch all stuck together in that one big mass. I've actually had that problem before. If you actually, miss them for a couple days, if you have to go somewhere in an emergency. I actually did that, and I came back, and it was like 2 days later, and they were so stuck, there was no way I was actually going to separate these. I left them all in one clump, and I actually had to use a bigger box in the incubator, which is another thing. And another thing I like to do is I like to use press and seal over the top of the box, which seems kind of weird because there's no ventilation holes on the box, no ventilation in the press and seal, and they actually hatch and survive with no problems at all, which is kind of weird that there's it seems like there's no air in there, but apparently the air can kind of transfer right through the press and seal, and it holds all the moisture and humidity in there. So I'm not sure if you actually had a box that completely sealed all the oxygen, if that would be very good, or I'd probably recommend doing press and seal or something like that. Probably one of the biggest things I struggle with at first is how to keep the humidity in there for 2 months without letting them dry out. And that's one of the biggest things. If you actually let them dry out, essentially what happens is the eggs will collapse. My first few clutches completely collapsed, and they got shorter and shorter and shorter until it was like a flat egg. And let me tell you, if it gets to that point where they dry out that much, your eggs won't hatch. And as a matter of fact, I think my first 2 or 3 clutches did not hatch. It was kind of frustrating when I first started. Now let me tell you, this press and seal is the key to successfully hatching these eggs. And kind of the cool thing is, it'll last usually 2 or 3 weeks with, without much condensation building up on the press and seal. And probably what I do is I go in maybe every 2 weeks and just open up the press and seal, kind of wipe down the underside of the press and seal, because that's where a lot of the condensation kind of builds up. And then you can put them in the incubator like this, or what I like to do is I like to put them in with the lid on, and there's enough room around the lid that I can actually breathe. And then I'll actually double stack them right in my incubator since I have a lid on it, and it works fantastic. Alright, so I also labeled the boxes before I put them in the incubator, and what I do is I actually print this out on my label maker. I have a Brother label maker, and I print out the hatch, the lay date, and the hatch date. Today is the 22nd of May. As a matter of fact, tomorrow's my birthday, so by the time you see this video, it'll be my birthday. I got snake eggs for my birthday. That's pretty cool. And then I also labeled the breeding. In this case, it was my pastel #1 female crossed with my bamboo calico male. So I should get, out of this cross, I should get regular bamboos, pastel bamboos, I should get some bamboo calicos, some pastel bamboo calicos. I'll also get normals, and I will get pastel calicos and some pastels and some calicos. So quite a few options with 3 genes in the mix. Alright, so one more thing I need to do is I need to move this female back into her tub. And usually after a female lays eggs, what I like to do is I like to change the substrate. Although I just changed this, I think about a week ago in her tub, so it's pretty clean. But I'll probably change it again and then maybe give her a bath so she could kind of go back into the feeding mode. And that's really what you want. You want your females to go back on food as fast as possible. Look at the really cool pattern on this girl. Really awesome. Really reduced for, pastels usually have a pretty reduced pattern. This girl is really beautiful. She'll make a really good mama for this clutch. So what I'm gonna do is just put it right back in her tub up here. This is where she lives, up in here in our ARS 7030 rack. Pretty awesome. Alright, so here is my ball python egg incubator. I actually converted this from a beverage cooler, put some heat tape on the sides, and then I actually put a little heat control in the back, and then a little tiny fan on the back for air circulation. And this has been working fantastic. Usually, like the middle of the year, I have this completely full of ball python eggs. It's pretty awesome. And this year, so far, these are my first 3 boxes in here. And this one actually, it's pretty fun actually watching them hatch and going through all the different ones that hatched out. The next one will be the 30th of June. So here, probably in about a month. That's been cooking for almost a month now, about 3 weeks, I guess. So we have about 4 or 5 weeks left before that one actually starts hatching out. Pretty exciting. And here's the 2 new boxes that I just put in here. These are going to be really awesome, hatching out some bamboos. Alright, so I'm going to add one more thing right at the end that is not snake related. This is actually my Arcom Pro 50 packed with all kinds of hatching eggs. Just had my first ever baby chicken hatch out. Take a look at that cutie. That is like less than an hour old, just hatched out of the egg. This is actually a black Australorp. Pretty awesome. Alright, so there you have it. I actually got some new snake eggs and a baby chick for my birthday. Probably the best birthday present that I can actually ask for. And it's going to be pretty cool that Bobby here around my neck is actually going to be a grandfather, assuming that those eggs actually hatch. I don't like to count my eggs before they hatch. As a matter of fact, I've had a lot of people say, hey, I'll give you some money for some bamboos before they hatch. And let me tell you, it is too risky to actually sell your eggs before they hatch. I definitely don't want to start giving refunds over some of the eggs that don't hatch. That's kind of a slippery slope when you kind of go down that road. As a matter of fact, when those eggs hatch, usually what I do is I do videos for every egg hatching and kind of open them up, do a little egg cutting, we'll see what's inside, and then I actually name each one, put a bunch of names in a jar, and then we pull out the names as I set them up in the hatchling rack. That is really probably the funnest part, where you can actually see all the new stuff coming out, give them all names, and set them up in the hatchling rack. So that is pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.